Greetings and Skull. I'm going to show you how to use the scripts and tools that I've developed for Fate of the Norns on Roll20. And so the first thing that you will need is a Roll20 Pro account. These tools make use of scripts as well as custom character sheets, both of which are pro features for Roll20. So the game owner will need to be a Roll20 Pro member, although the players will not necessarily need to. So the second thing that you will need is the package of files, which I will make available as a zip file in the description of this video, as well as wherever I post this video too. This should contain 5 things. Cleanup.js, weird.js, Fate of the Norns, or FotN.css, FotN.html, and a folder named images that contains images of all of the runes and the playmat. You can use your own images if you wish, but you might have to make some adjustments to the scripts. So I'm going to do this fresh. So I'm going to create a new game. And I already have a game called Fate of the Norns. So I'm going to call this Fate of the Norns 2. And I'm going to set it for a custom character sheet. All right, so before I get going, I'm going to need to do some setup with game settings and API scripts. And so let's go in here for the settings. I'm going to set it for a hex map because this is a hex-based game. And go ahead and save that. And then you can either set, you can either have built this as a character sheet sandbox game, or you can just use the custom sheet template, which is what I'm doing now. So I'm going to grab the text for the HTML that I have over off to the side here. You can open it up in any good text editor. I'm using Sublime Text 3. And I just paste that in there. Then you go to CSS styling. I'm going to copy my FOTN.css and paste that into here, and then save this. And then I'm going to go to the API scripts. The first thing that I'm going to do is search for an API script called map change right here. And I'm going to import that. And this is going to be very useful to the game. I go to new script. I'm going to copy. I'm going to open up my weird.js and go ahead and paste that in and change the name to weird. And we'll go ahead and save this. Make another new script, and I will copy the text from cleanup.js and paste that in and change the name to cleanup. Save it. Good, and I should be ready to launch. And so much for it automatically putting in the hexes, but that doesn't really matter. You can change it to a hex whenever. One thing that you do need to do is you do need to create a new page, and you need to call that page Playmates with a capital P. And I recommend that you disable the grid on this page. You should not need it. Okay. So, now let's go ahead and create our first character. So we're going to add a character. I'm going to call this guy Bob. And that'll be good enough for now. And there's a character sheet in here for Bob. Currently, it's just using some random color backgrounds for the different sections. Player name here, I'm just going to keep things nice and stable, I'm going to call this Steve. And let's say the void rune is physical. We'll make them level 9 with an essence of 5 and destiny of 2. I'm going to go ahead and add a few skills. Doesn't really matter, just to sort of show you how it works. You write the name of the skill here. And put your rank in there. And you can add as many of these as you want. You can add in passives, put the name here. I'm just going to type in some stuff randomly. And for actives, you can put the name. You can select your 3 metas, and you can put a description in here, which you can copy in from the book. And currently, you can put in 2 weapons. We'll call this like short sword and hand axe, which is size 3. Hand axe is size 4. Damage factor 1, 2. That's a 0, 0, 1, 1. That's got a parry. That doesn't. None of this really matters at this point. So PPF means physical protection factor. It's got no mental, no spiritual, no parry bonus, no evade bonus, no focus bonus. And the total of anything that you have from any of your miscellaneous equipment, maybe you have like a magic brooch or something that supplies some focus, maybe you have a few other things as well. Any miscellaneous bonuses from just other gear you happen to be wearing, or from passives that you always have active, you can just put them in here. Right now, this doesn't do anything. Except keep track of the stuff. but in the next version of this character sheet, I'll have some auto-calculating fields that will add up all your stuff and display what your total attack and total parry and total blah, blah, blah for all of that. Okay, so that's nice and good. And I'm just going to create another character called Steve. And his player's name is Bob, just to keep things nice and confusing. And we're going to make him level 9 with 5 Essence and 2 Destiny as well. And you don't necessarily have to have that other stuff. The only thing that you really need to have is Destiny. Okay. Now, before we start playing, there's 2 more things that you got to do. You got to make some decks. So I'm going to make a deck, and you need a deck for each player, or for each character, I should say. And the deck needs to be named the same name as the character. And I am assuming it is cap sensitive at this point. The card size works best if you make it 20 by 30. And you're going to add in, so I'm going to go save changes there. And you're going to add in the runes that belong to this character. So now there's a little bit of a trick here. You can't drop them from your assets. For some reason, that doesn't work. So you need to go to Choose File and then upload the image here. So I'm just going to give him Bercano. Let's go Alaz. You don't have to type in the names of the runes, but it, just helps keep things nice and easy for now. And perhaps I will use that functionality in the future. And I was picking these at random. And you do have to have a card backing, and I usually just use the Ganunga Gap. And for some reason, it doesn't like it when you choose a file, but it's fine if you just usually drop it on from outside. All right, so we're going to save that deck. And just to make things easy, I'm going to duplicate it. Make this one for Steve. Normally they wouldn't have the same runes, but we're getting on. So the next thing you want to do is go to the play mats map, and you want to drop the playmat file onto here. That's incorrect. So we'll just go here to my library, and I am going to upload. The playmat file. And this needs to be named. And it needs to be named the name of the character and then playmap. And you can see in the cleanup, it will tell you that it has to be named character name plus space playmat. And I screwed that up a little bit, so it needs to be lowercase there. And right here, and there, and I'm going to move these to the map layer just to stop people from screwing around with them. And since this one that's Bob playmap, that's Bob playmap. Change this to Steve. And I like to do just like drop a little text box on it. Call this Bob. And Steve. Just so that I know whose is supposed to be whose. Alright, now if we've done everything correctly, most of it should be set up. The last thing that we need to do is under Attributes and Abilities, for Bob, we're going to need to make an ability called Weird. And it's going to call Weird and it's going to pass in character name. It should be at. And Destiny. And you got to make sure that it matches. So if over here Destiny is lowercase, you're going to pass it in lowercase there. And that should be good. And we'll go ahead and show that in the macro bar and show it as a token action. We're going to add a second. This one's going to be called Cleanup. And it's just going to be cleanup dash dash and we're just going to pass it the character name. But for reasons that I have yet to discover, it has to call it twice. Otherwise, it might leave some runes on the board. Okay, we'll go ahead and show that one as well. And we will want a macro. 2 of them, actually. Which I'm going to call playmat. And we're going to want a macro called rejoin. Which just executes MC rejoin. We'll put both of those in the bar as well. So let's go ahead and test these. Oh, of course. So the first thing, yeah. If you try to draw from an empty deck, it will tend to crash sometimes. So you have to go here, show the decks, and you have to shuffle them to initialize them. And there you see, we just weirded. And they showed up all nice and pretty on Bob's sheet. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to put one into play, and I'm going to keep one in hand. I'm going to move it over a little bit. I'm going to weird again. And let's say that one of these is in wounds and one of them is in death. And then I'll weird one last time. And that actually, you can see that was my last rune. So and I got a little notice from Weird saying that my bag was empty. And I'm going to put this up here, turn it, and say that that is a maintained rune chain. We'll move that into play as well. Okay, so I get to the end of my turn, and I need to clean up, obviously, anything in death and wounds should stay out there. And I want these 2 runes that are being maintained to stay out here. The script should automatically ignore anything that is in wounds or death or drain. And if there are other runes that you want it to ignore, you need to shift select them. And then I'm going to press cleanup. And it will recall all of the runes that it can and shuffle the deck, shuffle the bag. And let's say next time I go ahead and weird and my bag's empty again, and I think, all right, having this maintained chain is no longer working out for me. And let's say that this heals one to stun. So that maintained chain is no longer working out for me because I don't have enough runes in my bag. I'm going to go ahead and let it lapse at the end of this turn. Now I hit cleanup. And, oh, right. So you can see you may need to adjust the size of the map to make sure that the zones match up properly. There's some instructions in the post for this on the size that you'll need to make the map, and you can just go in and adjust the size of it for the numbers to work out properly. But there you go, and Bob's your Viking. And if you want to go ahead and clean that out of there, just go ahead and put it back up into Essence, hit cleanup, and there you go. So how does the rejoin and playmat work? Well, when you're the GM, they don't do anything. But if you are the player, which I'm going to go ahead and rejoin as a player here. All right, so this is the field that the GM is currently using. And let's say I want to weird and I want to use some abilities. I'm going to need to see the playmat. So if I hit playmat, it'll move me over here. And if I rejoin, it'll move me back. So it's a very fast way to flip between the playmat and the rejoin. So the map change actually has a bunch of other functionality which you might find useful as well. But those are the two that I would put in as just macros that automatically get put onto the player. All right, so with these simple tools, you should be able to run an adequate game of Fate of the Norns on Roll20. Oh yes, one last thing. Suppose you take some damage, right? You don't necessarily want to weird, you just want to drop one rune on there. The easiest way to do that is you just hover over the deck and you can see that there's like a little card that pops out there. You click that and it'll draw one rune for you, and you can go ahead and just drop that onto the playmat, and should be fine. And if you need to get rid of it, you can just move it up to the top of Essence and clean up, and it should still find it. Every so often, the graphic for a rune will become disconnected from the card object that the game recognizes, and it'll become orphaned and it won't get cleaned up. But the card will still go back to the deck, so it'll be dealt out again. If that happens, you can just feel free to delete the orphaned image, and it will work just fine. All right, so I hope that helps people out in this COVID-y time to get your favorite Viking on. And let me know if you have any comments in the comment section. All right. Skull, and, go make the Norns proud.